Dear learners, I welcome you to this 4-week online course in effective communication skills for personal and professional development. Within this course, in different modules so far, we have tried to study communication and communication skills from various perspectives with regard to personal as well as professional communication. Now that we move to the 4th week, Communication in Action, today's lecture will talk about the power of body language in communication. Let us begin. As we all know, that body language is a form of non-verbal communication. As we have learned that we can have verbal communication or we can have non-verbal communication. So body language basically falls in the category of non-verbal communication, and it plays a very crucial role in conveying message, emotions and intentions beyond words. We usually think that we speak with the help of words, which is not wrong. But not only the words are helpful in delivering our message and information, but at the same time, there are many other things, for example, body language, our tone, our pitch, which play very significant role in enhancing the impact and meaning of the words that we speak. In fact, according to Mehrabian theory, 93% of communication is non-verbal. Isn't it very interesting that we focus so much on verbal communication and tend to ignore the role and significance of non-verbal communication in the form of our body language? So here, in today's talk, we will study in detail about the importance of body language in enhancing communication. When we refer to body language, what do we notice? That body language is basically a very complex phenomenon. I say complex because it comes from our self within. The psychology of this speaker plays a very important role in speaking through body language, and it involves a lot of non-verbal cues. Therefore, it becomes important not only for the speaker but also the listener or one who is trying to interpret the meaning communicated through the medium of non-verbal communication or body language. So therefore, as you can see, the scholars in this field say that we usually follow 7, 38 and 55 rule, which means only 30% of our communication is done with the help of words, whereas 38% of communication takes place through our tone, pitch and inflection, and 55% of communication takes place with the help of body language. Now, this makes it very clear that body language plays a very important role in communication. Therefore, if we want to be effective communicators, we need to pay serious attention to body language and various other nonverbal cues. As we proceed, we need to also know why, after all, body language communication skills are so important and why should we learn them. So, they increase our self-confidence. When we learn the grammar of a language, syntax of a language, when we learn the art of correct pronunciation, we certainly work on the articulative aspect of our communication. But when we work on our body language along with how we articulate what we speak, then certainly it increases our self-confidence. Another thing is that it raises the self-esteem. If we can communicate correctly and meaningfully, both in verbal as well as non-verbal manner, then certainly it increases our self-esteem. Not only this, if we can learn to control our body language and use it appropriately, we will certainly be able to add charm to our personality. And if the personality is charming and influential, certainly it will be capable of attracting the audience. With a good body language, impressive body language, appropriate body language, when we express ourselves, when we speak, then certainly our words and our expressions are given proper attention by the people. It is very helpful in gaining success, not only in the personal life but in professional life as well. It helps us in influencing people, in convincing people, in impressing upon others. It also helps us strengthen interpersonal relationship. It is not always necessary that we speak with the help of words. Many times, how we express ourselves in terms of warmth, emotions, feelings through non-verbal cues, that also plays very important role in strengthening our relationship with others. It is important for self-awareness as well as social awareness. It is helpful in expressing empathy towards others. It is also very important that it helps us in spotting the lies. Or if someone is concealing some fact, then also the body language changes and it becomes helpful tool for us to identify whether the person is speaking the truth or not. At the same time, it can also be very helpful in noticing misleading signals and red flags. So this is how we see that body language communication skills are very important for us in our life and in our professional setup too. Therefore, we should try to learn its nuances and practice so that we can be effective and influential communicator. Now the question arises how body language works. Looking into the different contexts, we realize that it helps in influencing the perception of the people and persuading them. If our words are properly supplemented, complemented by the body language, then certainly it helps others perceive in a right manner about our personality. Cross-cultural considerations are equally important. As we know that language is also a social element. It is also a kind of social behavior when we communicate. And because from culture to culture, interpretations vary, meaning varies, therefore, it is also very important that we pay attention to this fact whether our body language communication is appropriate to the given context of culture or not. So we should always try to avoid cross-cultural misinterpretations. So a gesture which is pleasant in our culture may not be equally pleasant in another cultural context. So such misunderstandings, such misinterpretations should be avoided. It also reinforces and contradicts verbal messages. Say, for example, when we nod our head, it is a kind of affirmative signal. And similarly, when we are moving our head like this, then it is not affirmative. So we can understand that our verbal messages tell things directly, but non-verbal communication plays equally important role in suggesting the desired message. Conveys emotions and attitudes. As we know, words are mere words. Then from where they get emotions? They get emotional content, they get feeling in them largely because of the body language or the body posture that we follow, our eye contact, and all these help us establish a kind of relationship with others, openness, confidence, whether we are hostile towards them, whether we are full of anxiety, all that gets expressed to the people. So it conveys our state of mind effectively. It is also helpful in building connection with people, trust with people. Say, for example, if someone is sharing something with us and we are giving appropriate gesture, then that can lead to the building of a connection, a kind of trust between us. Showing engagement. You might have noticed that sometimes when people speak something, we try to bring our ear towards them. We give some body expression, some gesture in such a way, we maintain eye contact, we nod from time to time to express that we are listening to them carefully. It also clarifies and regulates our conversation. So there are many nonverbal signals like raising hand, using finger gesture, which helps us supplement what we wish to convey with the help of nonverbal communication. So what the person is speaking, that is speech gets affirmed by the use of appropriate body language. So this is how body language works in the process of communication. Now, there can be different types, different forms, different elements of body language. Before we proceed, let us try to learn about them. Facial expression. As you all know, when we speak, we not only speak with the help of words, our eyes speak, our cheek, the movement of different organs, our facial expression on the whole tries to confirm the words that we speak. So our facial expression, whether we are happy, whether we are sad, whether we are in a disturbed mood, whether we are in a cheerful state of mind, all that gets expressed through facial expression. Gestures are there. Posture is also very important. If we sit very dull, then it shows the lack of confidence. If we sit properly, it enhances the confidence that we have. Eye contact. We are often told that when we are talking to somebody, we need to maintain eye contact because that is also a sign of confidence. And that also shows that we are interested in listening to that person or interacting with the other person. Then we have proxemics. Proxemics is personal space. When we are interacting with someone face to face, then some amount of distance, physical distance, has to be maintained. So in personal communication, in personal relationship with the family members, with the friends, how we maintain this personal space while communicating, and when we are in the professional setup or official setup, then what kind of proxemics do we follow and maintain? That is also an important aspect of our body language. Haptics, it's the touch. Say, for example, when we pat on the head of a child, that is also a kind of communication. We are shaking hands. Fine. We are touching the pulse to feel the pulse of someone if the person is not feeling well. So this is also a way of communication through body language. Paralanguage has its own very important role to play in addition to all these that we have discussed. So our tone, our pitch, our pauses, they all play a very vital role in enhancing the impact of the words that we speak. So these are the different aspects of body language which we should learn, we should practice, and we should enhance in order to be effective communicator and in order to succeed in gaining the desired objectives of our life. As we move ahead, we find that there can be different set of body language which can be used depending upon the different context or the setting. No doubt, we always communicate with our words along with our body language. Most of the times it is involuntarily that it is happening. For example, when I'm speaking, my eyes, my facial expression, my hands, my head, they all are automatically playing their role. But at times we get conditioned to some specific kind of body language signals which we are not aware of, and that may be negative or detrimental as well. So depending upon the context, depending upon the setting, depending upon the goal, there can be a different set of body language appropriate to be used. However, in our day-to-day life, for example, at home with the family or when we are outside with the friends, or we are casually interacting with people on the street, we follow body language in one specific manner. On the other hand, it is very important to learn appropriate body language communication skills for the purpose of interviews. So, for job interview, when we appear before the board, we have to make a good impression. So, right from the moment when we enter into the interview board, we have to be careful about the body language that we are manifesting over there. Public speaking. As a public speaker, we have already learned about the skills desired in order to be effective public speaker. So in public speaking, when we have to communicate a message to the mass audience, there are certain gestures which we should follow in order to show, in order to express our confidence and to be able to effectively communicate to the audience. Workplace communication, the way we communicate at home or with friends, will certainly not be the way we behave or communicate with people at our workplace. So, workplace has its own expectation of behavior from us, and for that purpose, body language has its own important role to play. Say, for example, when we are in the business meeting, where we are talking to the boss, when we have to understand team dynamics, it is not only important that whether we are practicing body language skills correctly or not, it is equally important that we are in position to read and interpret others' body language correctly. So it is also a kind of two-way process. So when we express certain kind of non-verbal behavior, the audience or the receivers also respond to that in terms of their feedback or the gesture that we get. So, for example, as a teacher, if I am delivering a lecture in the class, even if the class is silent, their eyes, their gesture, their silent cues are sufficient to tell the teacher whether they are able to understand the message, the lecture, or not. So, in workplace communication, it becomes very important because it is a very formal setup of work, and one has to be careful about body language communication skills. In terms of relationships too, as we know, it is very important in recognizing the attraction, means whether you are able to develop appropriate bond with the people. We all know that there is attractive body language and there can be repulsive body language. So there are certain non-verbal cues that we express which may not be very pleasant and attractive. So people run away from such people who are not very positive in their body language communication. People may start feeling discomfort. On the other hand, if it is appropriate body language behavior, people may feel attracted. So it also helps us in building relationship or firm contact with others if we follow right kind of body language communication. Now, as I just said, that it is not important only on the part of the communicator that one should follow body language appropriately. It is equally important for those who are at the receiving end of the message. In fact, in certain cases, it is more important for them because in the case of non-verbal communication, in case of body language communication, chances of ambiguity are very high. So, because it comes very much from within, from the subconscious realm of the speaker, therefore, at times it comes as a cluster of behavior. Therefore, reading and interpreting body language in correct manner also becomes very important in the process of communication. Now, as we know, that meanings vary across cultures. So, the person who is attending the communication should also consider the cultural background or the cultural context of the speaker. If the communication is taking place within the same cultural context and same cultural community, the chances of misinterpretation or ambiguity will be very less. But if it is cross-cultural communication, then in that case, the communicator should be very careful and should also ascertain whether the verbal and non-verbal cues that the speaker is going to share will be rightly interpreted by the receivers, listeners, or not. In that case, cross-cultural misinterpretations can be avoided if both the speaker as well as the listener are careful on this point. Register micro expressions. It's not only that the listener should focus only on the words. That is why active listening needs to be practiced. So, what is the tone? Whether it was full of sarcasm, or it was simple criticism, or it was in appreciation, whether what the person was speaking was supported by the body language or not. So, these micro expressions, minor expressions, they also need to be registered and interpreted correctly. Otherwise, the message may get misinterpreted, and that can lead to layers of misconception and confusion. No clusters of behavior, not isolated gesture. See, this is one body. When we are talking about body language, we should always remember that they are not separate entities. They are part of the same body, and that is why there will be some connection between and among the gestures or the movement and the posture. So, meaning should always be read and interpreted in view of the clusters of behavior. So, many gestures come together in order to express a single emotion. So, therefore, we should always remember while interpreting a message of body language that it is not to be interpreted as a single message or a single behavior. Check incongruence between verbal and non-verbal cues. Now, when we refer to some common body language cues, particularly the positive body language cues, then we focus on these aspects. First is eye contact. If the speaker is able to maintain eye contact with the listener or the audience, then certainly it expresses the level of confidence and how engaged the speaker is with the audience or the listener. Open posture. Open posture is always appreciated. For example, if we sit like this, it is closed posture. But if we sit like that, then it is open posture. Now, the open posture expresses receptivity, honesty, peace of mind, calmness within. When we are stressed, when we are disturbed from within, when we are full of anxiety, then we have a tendency to naturally practice closed gesture like this. Nodding. As we all know, when we are listening to others, we are many times responding through nods. So when we nod like this, it means we are paying attention. It shows that we are in agreement. It expresses that we are able to understand what the person is trying to say. So this is also a positive body language cues. Next is a smiling. Smile is since the best cosmetics, therefore one should always smile. Somebody once said that by smiling, if we can get good pictures, by smiling always in life, we can have a better life. So a smile is really one very positive and effective body language sign. When we smile, we express friendliness. When we smile, we express warmth. And with a gentle smile on the face, if you enter into the interview booth, you express that you are full of confidence. Leaning in, interest and attention. As I said, there can be attractive body language and there can be repulsive body language. So when we lean towards someone or something, it means we are taking interest. It means we are paying attention. And that is why leaning towards something or somebody also is a positive expression. So now that we know that these are the positive gestures, we should try to practice them and we should follow them. If we try this and make it a natural aspect of our personality and behavior, we will certainly see charismatic change in our life and personality. But at the same time, if we try to be little formal, then what are those contexts where we need to be very careful about our body language, because appropriate body language behavior can help us win the situation, and it can also help us in our job and career growth. Social context, as we are social beings, and in our day-to-day life also, we interact with many people for many purposes, starting from the home to the office, from office maybe to the park, from park to the market. We tend to interact with many people in a day. So, how our social behavior is pleasant and meaningful, for that our body language should also be positive in nature. In order to strengthen our personal relationship, in order to have a pleasant experience in our personal life, for that also we need to practice right kind of body language. Job interviews, when we are appearing before the interview board for the purpose of job, not only that our knowledge is tested, not only that our confidence is tested, but how we behave in totality in both verbal as well as non-verbal manner in front of the board, that also accounts a lot. Public speaking, as we have just talked about, whether the speaker is full of confidence or not, whether the person is speaking right things or not, whether the person is speaking in the welfare of the audience or not, all that gets easily communicated through our body language communication. Workplace communication, we have already talked about. And when presentations are to be made, then also certain body language practices which need to be followed. In meetings and team interaction also, when you are in the position of the leader, what kind of body language should you follow? When you are working as an employee, what will be your response in terms of body language? In business meetings and interactions, how do we present ourselves along with our ideas and views? All that matters significantly. When we are at the receiving end of the message and we are interpreting the message in the body language, then what kind of review and in what manner we are going to share the review or the feedback, that also is something which relates to body language. Whether we are approving of something or disapproving, for both the purposes, our body language will be different. And regarding cross-cultural communication also, we have already talked about, suppose we are talking to a delegation from some other country, it is always advised that we learn something about that culture and the tradition, and if required, we try to follow appropriate body language communication skills so that we can minimize the chances of ambiguity or confusion or misinterpretation. Now, this brings us to a fair understanding that body language basically is a form of non-verbal communication where we speak beyond the scope of the words. Our gesture, our tone, our movement of the limbs, all that play very significant role in order to communicate the message. So here we are going to see some images in order to understand how exactly the body language is to be practiced, what are the body languages that we should not follow. Let us begin and see them one by one. So here are some illustrations for you. Now this image, if you can see, is reflecting the Navrasas, 9 sentiments, 9 moods. The ancient scholar, Indian scholar, Bharat Muni, wrote Natya Shastra, which exists as the leading treatise on dramaturgy. There he has referred to 8 kinds of rasas, moods or sentiments, and later on 9th one was also added to it, as a result of which in Indian classical dance forms we see the expression of Navrasas. If you can see, the first image is expressing love, Shringar. Then there is an expression of wonder. The third one is giving the expression of fury, Rodra. Then we have fear. Next is the expression of disgust. Then there is laughter. And then we have Karun Ras, compassion. Then we have peace, Shant. And then the last one we find is the expression of heroic sentiment, that is Veer Ras. So, Nav Rasas here are expressing 9 kinds of mood. So, 9 kinds of emotions, sentiments that we have, and this is how our expression changes from one mood to another mood. If we look at the next image, we understand it better, as here we have positive gestures and they are all reflecting happiness. Likewise, if we are not happy, then the negative emotions will be reflected and automatically we behave in this manner with such gestures as you see here. So you can understand that when we are not in a very pleasant mood, when we are in the mood of disgust, when we are angry, when we are not in the mood of celebration, when we do not approve of something, when we do not like something, then this is how our gesture expresses the emotion. So these are again different shades of human emotions which are getting expressed with the help of body language. Now here we can see that on the one hand we have an image which shows how we express when we are in, how we express ourselves when we have low esteem. We refrain from getting social, we try to avoid meeting people, we don't want people to come to us or approach, we want to remain isolated, we really stop loving ourselves. So the self-esteem starts dropping down. And on the other hand, when we have our esteem very high, we at first love ourselves. So we respect ourselves, we are confident, we want to meet people, we love to be social, we love to interact, we love to not only appreciate ourselves, but we also love to appreciate others. So this is how we express our high esteem or low esteem even without speaking. Mere behavior, mere gestures, mere body language tells more than the words. Similarly, some more images we can refer to as we see. Open gesture and closed gesture I talked about. So the positive body language is open gesture. So when you see doing this, this is open gesture, and this is the clenched fist can mean anger or solidarity. Now here also it communicates both anger or solidarity. That is why gestures are to be interpreted in clusters. So it can mean both. When you associate it with other gestures of the body, you will be able to differentiate whether it is for anger or it is the expression of solidarity. In another image, we see again, people sometimes bite their lips when they are worried, anxious, or stressed. You might have noticed people biting their lips or biting their nails. That is also a sign of anxiety or disturbance. On the other hand, if somebody is pleasantly carrying smile on the face, not giving this kind of expression, it means the person's mind is very much composed and full of peace and balance. If we move to the next one, we find again a fine example with this illustration of closed gesture. You see crossed arms, it shows defensive and self-protective or closed off, not welcoming, not very open, maybe in defensive mood, feeling insecure from within. In the same image, we find hands on the hips, ready and in control, or a sign of aggressiveness. So this is again not a very positive gesture. When we are in some official meeting, you might have noticed that the distance between the speaker and the audience is relatively more than that of the personal distance or space. So this is how ideally a space should be maintained when we are communicating with people. If it is personal, it can be up to 1.5 to 4 feet. If it is public, then 12 to 25 feet would be better. These are some common body language mistakes which clearly exhibit lack of confidence. On the basis of the images that we have just seen, we can make out what it means by openness or defensiveness that people are sharing with each other. This brings us to the point as to what should we do then? What should we practice? And we see that we should practice open posture, open gesture, and facial expression. So we should try to manage our such habits which show that we are full of anxiety or we are in this state of nervousness. In any communication, the first thing first is to build the connection with the audience or the listener. So building rapport is very important, and in the first few seconds, the communicator does this by sharing a very pleasant gesture or eye contact or a smile on the face or leaning towards the audience. All these expressions help the speaker in building a kind of connection, a kind of trust with the listener or the audience. And beware of nervous habit. The point has been repeated, but only and only to tell that all such habits, all such non-verbal practices which express nervousness should be completely avoided. So these are basically the 10 secrets of confident body language. Nodding of the head, it signals active listening and understanding. A smile on the face increases warmth and approachability. Open posture, as we have already talked about, encourages trust. And then spatial awareness, it keeps a comfortable distance. Some amount of distance is to be maintained. Whether the person is maintaining that distance of a space or not during the communication, that also tells a lot about the person's personality. A steady pacing. When we are disturbed, we walk very fast, or maybe the pace of our walking is not even. Whether we are irritated or we are in a comfortable state of mind, all that affects our behavior. So, a steady pacing, whether in terms of speech or in terms of walk, they also signal a lot about our personality. A strong eye contact is a must. Purposeful gesture is again very important because it strengthens the messages that we give, and with the help of our hand movement, we certainly do this. Mirror enhances rapport by copying gestures. So this is actually a very good exercise. If we can stand in front of the mirror and we can observe very carefully how we express ourselves through our body language in order to express certain emotions or react to a given situation, that also will be very helpful. And postural echoing, the way we stand, the overall posture that we maintain, that also tells a lot about an individual's personality. So if we can really practice them and we want to be an influential speaker or an impressive personality, we want that the vibes in the surrounding they should be positive. People should love to be in the company, that we are able to convey what exactly we want to. For all that purposes, maintaining right kind of body language and appropriate use of words is certainly expected and needed. So let us summarize what we have learned so far in today's lecture. So we talked about the 3 C's: context, clusters, and congruence. By context, the relevance, the situation. in the given situation or context of communication, whether appropriate use of body language was made or not. Clusters means we express ourselves through non-verbal cues, not as independent or one or two gestures, but each gesture needs to be interpreted in clusters. So, there are many other gestures which support a specific gesture. So, for that matter, it is very necessary that we understand a given gesture or body language in the cluster in which it works, and then the congruence, whether the words and the body language, they are going together, they are complementing each other or not. Body language is crucial in effective communication, as we have seen that only 7% of our speech, only 7% of our communication takes place in the form of words, and almost 55% of communication takes place through body language. We can understand how crucial it is in ensuring effective communication. By paying attention to the non-verbal cues and practicing effective body language, we can enhance our communication skills and also improve our ability to connect with others. And we should always remember that body language is not always intentional. It is always not voluntary in nature. Most of the times, it is involuntary and unintentional, and therefore it can be influenced by the variety of factors. For example, our cultural background, our personality, our emotional state of mind. So all that play very important role in ensuring the kind of body language behavior that we practice. And being able to read the body language of others can also be very helpful to us in order to understand their thoughts, feelings in better manner, and also respond to the communication effectively and appropriately. So here is an activity for you, and in this activity there is an image. You have to observe the image carefully and read the non-verbal signals, clues, and also interpret this image. These are the sources. You may refer to these links for additional reading material. Thank you.